What is going on, Cuse Nation? Welcome to yet another edition of Orange Heat. My name's Giovanni Heater, as always, and thank you for joining me on this edition of Orange Heat. Today, I have a guest alongside me, Tyler Gibbens, my good buddy. Tyler, how you doing?
What's going on, Theo? Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. We've had Gibby on the show quite a few times, and
Yes.
he's always had a lot to offer, got a lot of knowledge of the Cuse. Me and him, we call each other Dome buddies. We always
Dome
head up
Bros.
to the Dome together as we slowly dwindle down for whom the bell tolls. That's our we call it our buddy
That's
song.
the jam.
We always get hyped for our Cuse games with it, so we figured we'd open up the show with a little bit of Metallica. But today, you guys are here to listen to us dish out our Orange Heat awards for the year. That's the football season and the basketball season. We're going to go through down the list and give you guys a great plethora of different awards, some unique stuff and some of your stuff that you would always consider to be on an award show. So, Gibby, I'm going to have you name down the list of the football awards, and then I'll name down the basketball awards just so people know what they're getting themselves into for the rest of the episode here.
All right. So we're going to start with the football awards. In order, we have the Offensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, and the Specialist Player of the Year. Then we're going to go to the Most Improved Player and the Overall Team MVP. After that, we're going to hit you with the Freshman of the Year, the Outstanding Leader Award, a Character/Personality Award, the Connection of the Year, the Best Game, and the Top 3 Best Moments of the Year.
Very well said, my amigo. And looking at the basketball side of it, it's very similar to the football side, a few differences here. So we're going to hit you with the Player of the Year MVP award. I think we all know who that might be. And then we're going to hit you with the Defensive Player of the Year. After that, we're going to do the Most Improved Player. After that, we're going to do the Freshman of the Year. Then the Sixth Man of the Year, which is really something that the NBA started, and it's been quite interesting. Players like James Harden won when they were back with the Oklahoma City Thunder with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook before they became stars. So the Sixth Man's really an interesting award. Guys that, especially in their younger years at playing, whether you're a freshman or sophomore in college or you're a rookie in the NBA, they usually, after winning such an award, can go on to have successful careers and be of MVP status. So the Sixth Man's a intriguing award there that we have on our basketball profile today. Then we have the Performance of the Year, Outstanding Leader Award, Character and Personality Award. And just to touch upon that a little bit, that's usually like the team goofball, the funniest guy, the guy that everybody knows. You notice him, whether it's, on all the cool La Familia videos that the Syracuse football team put out or the different stuff. So that's the Character and Personality Award. Then we have the Connection of the Year, then the Best Game of the Season, and then the Top 3 Best Moments. So without further ado, I say we attack the football side of our daily agenda here for the Orange Heat Award ceremony of 2019/2020.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Gib, I'll kick us off here with the football. For the Offensive Player of the Year award, I have none other than wide receiver junior, 6'1", Tristan Jackson. 66 receptions on the year, 1,023 receiving yards, and a total of 11 touchdowns on the season. Gib, who do you have?
I have the same thing as you there, Tristan Jackson. Had a great season. He even won ACC Best Receiver of the Week.
Gib, you there, buddy? I think we lost you a little bit. All right, we apologize for a brief technical difficulty there. As you guys know, crazy going on. We're on Zoom right now.
Yes.
Pretty much what everybody's been using around the country during this little quarantine. We can't pretend that's not happening, even though this is kind of our escape, for me anyways, hopping on here and talking about sports, doing what we love. But Gibby left off talking about his Offensive Player of the Year award. It was, as well as mine, it was Tristan Jackson for him. So, Gib, do you want to touch upon that for a quick second as well?
Yeah, same thing you were saying, the numbers. I mean, 66 receptions and 1,023 yards, averaging 15.5 yards per reception. He also ended up earning ACC Receiver of the Week 1 week. So that's, I mean, without a doubt, he was my offensive MVP.
Agreed, and I think it was kind of a situation. You could have looked at Mo Neal at the running back position. He had a little over 800 yards carrying the ball on the season. I just don't think Tommy DeVito really qualified. He was kind of a disappointment this year, had a little bit of a slow year. So, again, we got to give it to Tristan Jackson. But moving on, next up, we have the Defensive Player of the Year award. And, Gib, who do you have for that?
For the Defensive Player of the Year, I had Andre Sisco. Made the big number that stood out was his 5 interceptions. And I mean, he's a quick, dynamic player, and he's a lot of fun to watch on defense.
All right, I gotta beg to differ with you there. I thought you might say that, and I could see why you say that. It's kind of he was a preseason All-American. I totally get it, 5 interceptions, but I'm gonna go with Lakeem Williams. And Lakeem Williams ended off the season 110 tackles, leading the team in tackles by a large margin, 4.5 sacks. He tied Alton Robinson for the second most on the team. Just ahead of him was Brandon Berry with 5.5 sacks. But nonetheless, Lakeem Williams with an absolute stellar season. And it was his only season as a senior, his only season starting on the Syracuse football squad. He had big shoes to fill after Keelan Whitner and Ryan Guthrie graduated last season. And I think he stepped up big time at the linebacker position and really filling those gaps. So I'm going to give the Defensive Player of the Year to Lakeem Williams.
That's a good pick. Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and that's definitely both are 2 great candidates for the award.
Sweet. So now moving on, we have the Specialist of the Year, and I really think that this is kind of no competition. If we're talking last season, we could argue that this was a tough pick because, obviously Andre Schmidt won the Lou Groza Award, but Hoffrichter's a very talented punter in his own right. And in here you have your kick returner and your punt returner and Sean Riley and a little bit of Nykeem Johnson action and everything. But Andre Schmidt didn't have as exciting of a year this year. He did only miss 3 field goals on the season, but it just wasn't the same numbers as last year, whether it was he missed a few that he should have made, and there was a few that he missed a few extra points. And we also didn't kick as many field goals as we did the season prior. It wasn't anywhere near the Lou Groza Award this year. So my Specialist of the Year, without a doubt, Sterling Hoffrichter. 69 punts, 3,026 total punting yards, and that's an average of 43 yards a punt. I mean, this guy could boom it for 50 yards plus if he needed to, put teams in tough situations and put our defenses in great situations throughout the entire course of the season. I think he's the best punter in college football, and I think he's an NFL talent.
Yep, I 100% agree with you there. I had the same exact Specialist of the Year.
Excellent. Sterling Hoffrichter, Orange Heat, 2019-2020 Specialist of the Year. Now moving on, once again, we have the Most Improved Player. This is an interesting position, and it was a tough pick for me. Who did you pick, Gib?
It was funny to hear you talk about the Defensive Player of the Year because this is where I had Lakeem Williams, the Most Improved Player. I mean, after this being his first year starting and coming up with 47 solo tackles and 4.5 sacks, I mean, those are good numbers, especially for the first year starting.
It's funny you say that. I had it written down and erased it and took Lakeem Williams out since I already had him as Defensive Player of the Year. And I filled in right in this spot is Josh Black. Josh Black on the defensive line. He stepped up big. He was a key contributor in filling the holes once Chris Slayton graduated last season. So I had Josh Black in here. 4 sacks on the season, 39 total tackles. And like I said, just really improving, filling shoes when he needed to after Chris Slayton was gone, really filling that. It wasn't going to be just him. But a lot of the weight was definitely on his shoulders. He's an animal in the weight room. If you guys saw him on that La Familia video segment Syracuse football did. So Josh Black, my Most Improved Player for this. Now moving on, the overall team MVP. This is interesting.
Yeah.
People might want to hurt me for this one. Sterling Hoffrichter.
Really?
The punter, because he put us in so many situations where the defense could get stops. They were pinning people deep in their own territory. He was a crucial part to keeping some games close. And let's face it, it wasn't a hugely successful season like we expected it to be. And this kid is the only guy on here that I think no matter what is going to have a career in the National Football League. And I got to say, he was our team MVP. He day in and day out played the best football. Who do you have, Gib?
That's an interesting pick. I went a totally different direction. And even though we already gave him an award, I have the overall team MVP being Tristan Jackson.
See, that was
Really had a great season. He really was DeVito's number one target. So he was without a doubt my MVP.
excellent, excellent. That definitely was my more realistic pick. The punter's never going to get picked for team
But
MVP,
hey,
but
I mean, you make a compelling case for him. I
yeah,
mean, he helped us immensely.
absolutely, absolutely. So now moving on, we have the freshman of the year. Gib, who do you have for your freshman of the year?
Freshman of the year, I have the tight end Luke Benson.
Yep.
Now, looking at his numbers, 8 receptions, 176 yards, and 3 touchdowns, which, I mean, those aren't crazy numbers, obviously, but this guy's a freshman. This guy's coming out of high school, putting up those numbers, and I'm excited to see what his future holds here at Syracuse.
I'm right there with you. I have Luke Benson as well for my freshman of the year. He broke off that 70-yard touchdown gash in early on in the season. And I think that he's a legit player. Like you said, only in his freshman year, putting up big numbers for a freshman. Now, it's crazy because I wish we had done this last year, because last year would have been a really tough freshman of the year pick. Last year, you had Andre Sisco, an All-American. You had Andre Schmidt, who won the Lou Groza Award as a freshman. You had Trill Williams. I mean, you just had a plethora of very talented football players in that conversation, Todd Harris being one of them. That would have been an interesting case to make last season, but I think Luke Benson wins it hands down this year. Now, moving on past the freshman of the year, we have the Outstanding Leader Award. Now, this is something that it's hard for us to really put a grasp on and notice, but that La Familia show really gave us a little bit of an inside look, and that's pretty much what I based my opinion off of for the Outstanding Leader Award. And for me, I have senior defensive lineman Kendall Coleman. He's on the defensive end alongside the tandem duo with Alton Robinson. I think he's an NFL defensive end coming up here soon, and he just looked to be a great leader. He was a poet. He shared some of his poetry, and he really stepped up. I've seen a lot of, we interviewed Cooper Dawson early on in my show's career way back last year, and he really clinged on to Cooper Dawson. Cooper Dawson was a freshman, Kendall Coleman a senior, that relationship. So I put him as my Outstanding Leader Award. Who do you have?
I got the same thing as you. Yep, we're on the same page for that one, Kendall Coleman.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, now moving on, we have this one's the fun one, Character and Personality Award. Who do you have, Gib?
This one I have Sean Riley, and I have him for just one reason: the orange hair.
Nice.
Love the dyeing the hair orange. I think that's awesome. That says a great deal to like commitment to the team, and that's just awesome. So definitely giving him the personality award.
Good stuff. Good stuff. My personality award, Sean Riley was definitely in the conversation. I got Chris Elmore, Rhino. He did his shows every single week that were a lot of fun. His Jungle Boogie or whatever, I forgot what they were called. But he's always a big goof. He gets everyone laughing, and he's a tank. We get excited when he goes in the game at fullback. He's always moving bodies around. So he's a talent, and he seems to be a joy and a hype man on the sidelines as well. So I have Chris Elmore, a.k.a. Rhino, as my Character and Personality Award. But moving on, the Connection of the Year. So this award goes to two guys that really just seem to know where each other are on the field at all times. They find each other. They find ways to make plays together. Who do you have for your Connection of the Year, Gib?
This I got DeVito to Tristan Jackson. Again, I know we've heard his name a lot, but he was his number one target, and I think they for sure had a strong connection on the field.
Yeah, I have the same exact thing. It's interesting. They struggled early on in the year. Some miscommunications were very evident against Liberty in the first game of the season. Tristan Jackson did not have a big game. DeVito didn't have a big game either. And it was very apparent, but they kept working at it. They kept grinding at it, and it got better and better. Tristan Jackson had 2 touchdowns in the Maryland game, and it just continued to grow. And Tristan Jackson went on to have a great season. And matter of fact, he's leaving, and he's going to the NFL after just his junior year. So I, again, have DeVito to Jackson as well. Gib, next on our list, we have the best game of the season. My best game of the season right here, it was only between 2, and it wasn't super hard of a pick, but I ended up walking away. Best game of the season would be the 49-6 win on the road at Duke against the Blue Devils. An interesting game. The only game where we really dominated a good team, so to speak, or a team at our same talent level, because I wouldn't really consider Holy Cross or Western Michigan at the same level. This was against an ACC foe down on Tobacco Road. But 4 rushing touchdowns on the day. It was spread all across. Jarvian Howard had one, Mo Neal had one, Jawar Jordan had one, and Tommy DeVito had one. 395 total offensive yards, 286 rushing yards, 3 forced turnovers by the defense, and capped off by a great play, a 48-yard pick six for Andre Sisco. So that was my game of the year, the 49-6 victory at Duke. Gabe, what do you have?
My game of the year was the last game of the season, the Wake Forest game. We won that one 39-30 in overtime. Even though we knew, okay, even if we win this.
Gib? Welcome back once again. Again, we struggle with the technical difficulties a little bit. Everybody in the country's on Zoom, whether they're doing homework or meetings or whatever. So, the platform itself is a little shaky at times, but we're back. Gib, your game of the year, you said it was my second place game. You had the win over Wake Forest in overtime to cap off what was kind of a disappointing season. Do you want to touch upon that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it was just nice to go out with a win. I mean, nobody likes to go out on a loss, especially after the season we had. So although it really wasn't like a super standout game for anybody and we didn't blow them out, we squeaked by them in overtime. But that's my best game just because it was nice to go out on top with a win.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And like I said, that was my second place too. A phenomenal game. One of our few and far between wins of the season as well. So great one there. And that'll be mentioned here in my next segment. The best moments, top 3 moments of the season. Gib, hit me with your top 3, buddy.
All right, not in any order. These are just the top 3, but I didn't order them 1, 2, 3. But one of them is definitely the packed dome versus Clemson. That environment, that place, I mean, for at least the beginning, for most of the first half, was booming with energy, with noise, and it was just a great environment, and I loved being there.
Oh, yeah, we were there together, big man, me and you.
It was
Gibby
great.
over here. So I have season tickets, and I was like, dude, you got to come to the game with me. I don't have an extra ticket, but we got to find a ticket. We found a
We
ticket
did.
online.
In the same row.
Yep, same exact row. The man
Can't
dropped
pass that down.
insane amount of money on that one ticket, and we hit the dome together. It was awesome. The Cuse on the
It was
quad
worth it.
was really cool. The parties before, and then we hit the dome. Just the craziest atmosphere I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was there when we beat Clemson, and still this being in a sold out Carrier Dome, it was insane. And while I'm talking about it, that was as well one of my top 3 moments of the season, just being there in that sold out Carrier Dome. When they came out of the tunnel, everyone's going nuts. The train horn, the student section, all wearing all white while the rest of the dome was wearing all orange. They threw up the orange powder. You had Sean McDonough on the call. You had Kurt Herbstreit in the booth on the call. So just Saturday night, primetime college football, ABC, was all the spotlight was on Syracuse, and that's the first time in a very long time that's happened. So I'm right there with you, buddy. But what else you got?
For my second, I have back to that Wake Forest game, the Trill Williams pickpocket towards the end there in overtime to bring it to the house for the touchdown to seal the win. That was my number 2. I actually didn't watch it. I was listening on the radio. I wasn't home, and I heard, and I was going crazy in the car.
Nice. Yep. I have that on my list as well. They call it, the commentator made an awesome, kind of one of those memorable moments, memorable call for me anyways, as a pursuing sports broadcaster. And when they showed the replay, he said, cash, money, trillionaire for Trill Williams. And Trill Williams took it all the way, ripping the ball away in overtime to beat Wake Forest. Wake Forest was in a position I thought we were about to lose. I thought Wake Forest was about to punch it in. I was in the dome for that game. And it was really cool because it just, similar to how the basketball season ended, it ended on a positive note. I went home feeling fulfilled with the football season to a certain extent, rather than feeling bummed, even though we had only won 5 games and we were disappointed. It just ended it on a nice note, and I felt hyped for Syracuse football again, and I think every fan can agree with me on that one. So it was definitely exciting. What's your third moment here of the season?
My third is back to the man himself, Christian Jackson. He's been on this list so many times, but it was his stiff arm touchdown versus Western Michigan. That was just, I mean, we killed Western Michigan that week, and that was just an awesome move by him. And then that's the week he went on to earn ACC Receiver of the Week. So I thought that was an awesome moment, a big win, and a big accomplishment for himself as well.
Good stuff. I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember seeing it there. Mine is a little bit different. My third best moment of the season has to go to when Syracuse was playing Holy Cross, right? There was a targeting call. I'm hearing a little bit of a feedback, but there it is. It's gone, just like that. So there was a targeting call, and the player got ejected from Syracuse. Can't remember exactly who it was. It was months ago. And the whole dome's booing. You know, the ref's getting booed out of the place. Dino Babers is going insane. And on the very next play, Trill Williams picks up the receiver and suplexes him. Just
Yep.
puts it right on his head. And it was crazy. And the intent behind it was to send a message that we dictate this game coming into our house. The dome went insane. Dino even loved it a little bit. Like, we'll take the penalty if we're enforcing things. And that was really cool to see because it really sent the message of, we know we're better than this team. We'll take the 5 yards if it means we're sending a message and we're saying you don't mess with our house in the Carrier Dome. So I love that move by True Williams. It was really, really cool. So there we go. And that's the conclusion of our 2019-2020 Syracuse football season award ceremony, Gib. Let's give it a round of applause for the Cuse seniors. And Gibby's frozen, of course. 1 second.
Let me
All right.
check. Let me check my network really quick.
All right, no worries, buddy.
All right.
We're back. We're pushing through the technical difficulties. No biggie here. So, just running down through one more time for the things you guys missed. Our best game, Gibby had the Wake Forest win. I had the win at Duke. The best moments, we both had the cash money trillionaire to seal the deal against Wake Forest, stripping it and taking it to the house. We had the sold-out Carrier against Clemson for the first time in a very, very long time. And then we had I had the True Williams suplex against Holy Cross. He had the Tristan Jackson stiff arm against Western Michigan, taking it to the end zone. Moving on to basketball, my friend. This is kind of more of your forte. I know you're a big football fan as well, but we definitely get hyped for basketball together. So looking at the basketball awards, again, very similar to the football awards with a few exceptions and a few changes. Kicking it off, player of the year. Who's your MVP, my friend?
This one was probably the easiest one on there. I mean, I got to give the MVP player of the year to Elijah Hughes. Averaging 19 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 3.4 assists per game. And just the way he controlled the court when he was out there, it was just watching him play was a blast. He was a very confident player, definitely a strong role model out there as well. So without a doubt, he was my MVP.
100%. Same thing. You can't make an argument anywhere across the board. He's a man amongst boys. Clearly the most talented guy on the court almost at all times. I think he was even better than Tyus Battle, if you ask me. He was the ACC's leading scorer. Averaged 42.6% from the field, 37 steals on the season, 26 blocks. Just an exceptional year for the young man, Elijah Hughes, who now I think will be leaving us for the NBA. He's testing the waters in the NBA draft. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. If he comes back, we could have an insane year. But that's a big question mark right now. Now moving on, the defensive player of the year. Gabe, who do you have?
For the defensive player of the year, now this is not something you're going to see in the numbers. Only with 4.2 defensive rebounds, averaging 8.8 blocks, and 1.1 steals, my defensive player of the year was Marek Dolezaj.
I'm right there.
Just watching him play, I mean, the hustle that kid's got is insane. Just the drive he has, and he's such a hustler. Always running for the rebound, trying to cover whoever he can if there's an open man. And really just the hustle is what gave him that award for me.
Absolutely. I got the same thing. There was no standout here. There was no Fab Melo who won Big East Player of the Year back in the day with, his insane number of blocks and rebounds. You didn't have that this season, but again, for the hustle and everything, I have Marek Dolezaj, 27 blocks on the season, 36 steals, very similar to numbers to Hughes, which is why Hughes came in second place for this award to me, but we had already given them the MVP, so I decided to hold off on that. This isn't a Malcolm Brogdon, who for Virginia a few years ago won ACC Player of the Year and ACC Defensive Player of the Year. And Dolezaj had to step up at times, 206 rebounds. He had to play the center position when it was needed. He stepped up big there. Don't get me wrong. He got bullied a little bit on the inside, but that's not his position. And I think when you needed it, he stepped up big. He's my Defensive Player of the Year as well for his scrappiness and his grit. Moving on, most improved player, Buddy Boeheim. Who do you have, mi amigo?
I have back to the same thing, Dolezaj.
Really?
I mean,
okay.
Boeheim was a huge improvement, but I was taking a look at Dolezaj's numbers, and that's what really got me. Going from averaging 4.1 points to 10.4, 3.5 rebounds to 6.4, and from 59.1% from the free throw line to 74.7%.
Okay. Since you want to play the numbers game, I'll take a look at some Buddy Boeheim numbers that I have.
That's fair.
He averaged 17.1 minutes last season. This season, 35.6 minutes, almost doubling his minutes per game. He played a much bigger role this season as the starting guard. He was the second leading scorer on the team with 15.3 points per game. That's compared to only 6.8 points per game last season. There was a time when he was in the top 5 leading scorers in the ACC along with Elijah Hughes. He's ranked as the best three-point shooter in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and I think he's just overall much more confident. He also developed, instead of just being a jump shooter and a three-point shooter, he developed a drive, a floater, a layup, and a mid-range game. So he really was taking people off the dribble one-on-one a lot more this season than he ever had. So mine's Buddy Boeheim.
Yeah, I knew taking Doley might be a little controversial just because of how great Buddy Boeheim was, but I love Dolezaj. He's one of my favorites on the team, and I really love watching him play, love watching his hustle.
Good stuff. I love his nickname people have for him, the Slovakian Hammer.
Hammer.
Absolute beast. We love it. All right, moving on. The freshman of the year. This one wasn't too hard for me. Joe Girard III.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah, Joe Girard, he really he took a starting role just a few games into the season. Jalen Carey held it originally. Joe Girard quickly took that over. He averaged 12.4 points per game. He led the team in assists. He just seemed to get confident as the season went on. He could take people one-on-one off the dribble. He could pull up. He just had a confidence about him to shoot the basketball, a confidence we haven't seen in a freshman in quite a while here in Syracuse. And he's a good ball handler. I think he's going to develop into a phenomenal point guard for this Syracuse basketball team. Really a player, I don't see him ever going to the NBA just because of his size until after he graduates, but a guy like Jerry McNamara that becomes the core, the glue of the team and leads the team in scoring and everything like that. So I think Girard's going to be phenomenal as his career progresses.
And also, you got to mention his 89.4% free throw.
Yeah,
I mean, that is impressive.
It is.
He did,
impressive.
Yep. Towards the beginning of the season, that number was closer to, I think, the low 90s, and he did lead the nation.
Yeah, good stuff there. All right, moving on from that, our next award, the Sixth Man of the Year. This is probably my favorite award on the docket right here. I don't know why. It just has a cool feel to it, and to me, I awarded it to a player that I rooted for throughout the entire season. But Gib, first, let's hear who you had.
My sixth man was very easily Quincy Guerrier. 6.9 points, 5.3 rebounds, and he only averaged 20.3 minutes per game. So that's obviously the sixth man. You don't expect them to be averaging a huge amount of minutes, but when Sidibe got into foul trouble or Dolezaj just wasn't doing it, we put Guerrier in, and he really is going to be a beast, and I'm very excited to see his progression at Syracuse.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had Quincy Guerrier as well, 6.9 points per game. He averaged 20 minutes a game. So, again, playing that role off the bench, only playing about half of the game. But he seemed to always be dependable once we got down into foul trouble, when we needed a spark, especially when guys like Sidibe just weren't getting things done. He would come in and he would put up points. He was an absolute animal on the glass, getting rebounds.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed watching Gary A progress through the season. And I think next season we're in for a big surprise with him. I could see him being very dominant down low. Doesn't have a jump shot, and I'm okay with it because compared to guys like Brissett, he knows his strengths and plays to his strengths. He's not going to take those jump shots. And actually, as the season progressed, he did take a few from mid-range around the free throw line, and they were good. So he developed, but he knows his strengths. He would get the drive, get the ball onto the inside. So I really liked watching Gary A play. He's very athletic, a very athletic body.
Yes.
Out of Canada, underrated recruit. I'm excited to see what he does. Just as a freshman, he won our sixth man of the year. That's pretty impressive.
And he also improved greatly throughout the season. I mean, that's one thing to touch on for sure. From the beginning to the end to where we finished, a tremendous amount of improvement.
Absolutely. I mean, he's second place for my freshman of the year over Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now moving on from that, and I think we're, touching upon it real quick, I think we're going to be talking about him next season for sure for our most improved player, defensive player of the year, possibly the even player of the year. I mean, he's going to be an asset to this team next season.
Yep.
I think so for sure. So now moving on from that, the performance of the year, Gabe, who do you have?
Now, this was really tough between two, but I had to take my boy Sidibe, believe it or not, versus UNC, the final game of the season, that big win. We crushed UNC, and I think Sidibe really was a factor. He had 12 points that game, 13 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and an assist. And he really we were struggling with Sidibe, the beginning of the season, but the last 5 or 6 games he was averaging a double-double, and he really stepped up. He was doing what the center really needed to do. And I think he was a huge force in that big win against UNC for the last game of the season.
Absolutely. That's you make a great case for that one. My performance of the year, I wanted to give it to an individual, and something about me just couldn't when I went back and watched it. The performance of the year actually for me went to the entire team in overtime at UVA. 20 points in overtime as a team. More than they had even scored in the second half. They scored in overtime. 20 points. You went from 43 points at the end of regulation to 63 points when it was all said and done. 5 3-pointers by the Orange. Getting in on that, Elijah Hughes had 1. Joe Girard had 2. Buddy Boeheim had 2. There was just a confidence about it. And all of a sudden, we took the game over. I've never seen anything like it. It was really, really insane. It was a collective effort, which is why I gave it to the entire team. Dolezaj had some key blocks, some key assists, some key rebounds. Guerrier was getting up on the glass big time. Some key free throws out of both of those guys. So I gave it to the entire team in a 63-55 overtime win on the road to avenge a previous loss against the Virginia Cavaliers.
That was a great game. One of my favorites. And my second option was Buddy Boeheim in that game.
Yeah, and defending national champions, I might add as well.
Yep.
Good stuff.
On the road.
Good stuff. All right, now moving on, we have our Outstanding Leader Award. Who do you have?
This is going to go again to Elijah Hughes. Now we see he's leaving, and he really obviously in his numbers that we already talked about, but he was so confident, whenever he was on the floor, it seemed like he really made things mesh. And yeah, to me, he just seemed like a leader watching him play. It seemed like he could easily, pick up the other players. When we're down big, Eli hits a big shot. It seems like we can get a big comeback from there.
Yeah, 100%. I have Elijah Hughes as well. In the conversation was Joe Girard, but I definitely had Elijah Hughes for the fact that he's older. He's more mature. He's been a part of this team. This was kind of his team this year. And he really took responsibility a lot. I listened to a lot of the post-game press conferences and interviews, things like that. And he always, even after a tough loss, took responsibility, put it on his own shoulders to get better. Game in and game out, he was dependable to hit the big shot when we needed it. And he was the go-to guy. And he was a silent leader on the court. You never see him. He always looks so calm, so comfortable. Yeah. And I think that's what keeps the other guys grounded. Guys like Joe, who are very hyped up leading into our next award. It keeps guys like that grounded because you have to stay calm. And he was always very peaceful, kept to himself a little bit, and never super animated, which is kind of what the team needed at times in tough situations. So I have Elijah Hughes as well. Looking next, Gib, how about you introduce our next award?
The next award, we have the Character / Personality Award. Gio, I'll let you give who you gave that award to.
I had to give it, as I just mentioned, Joe Girard III. The guy was
Yep.
always pumped up. You know, he was. I loved watching him play because he got the dome rocking. After hitting a big three, he'd be waving his arms.
Oh,
He'd be hugging up on Buddy Boeheim. You know, those two were very close. At which, spoiler alert for later on. But you know, he just always had that charisma, that energy, and he's a freshman, so that just showed how much confidence he had. The kid is gonna be a star. The next Jerry McNamara. I'm super excited to see how the rest of his career plays out, but he has that personality, he has that flash, that winning mentality. He was hyped the entire year. Did you see too, you know, him and a couple other guys got into some scrums over the course of the season, and his way of giving it back is going down and hitting a shot in their face. You know, very exciting stuff from Joe Girard throughout the season. Who did you have?
I had the same thing, Joe Girard. And as you made that last comment, one of my favorite moments that I actually didn't mention on my list, but now that I'm thinking about it, was Notre Dame was at the Dome, super close game with a minute left, and Joe, he did get into a little scuffle with somebody on the other end of the floor. I think the guy made a three. You know, Joe wasn't happy. He gave him a little push. The Notre Dame player gave Joe a little push, and Joe just came right back and drilled a three in his face. And that just to me, he was so confident. And one of my favorite things ever was when Joe would hit a three and really hype the Dome up. Even when we were down big, it did not matter. The slightest, whatever, we're gonna come back. Yeah, the slightest bit of energy, Joe just blew that up, and the whole Dome would explode, and it was really awesome.
It was. He's one of a kind. I love guys like that. The polar opposite of Hughes, who's always calm, and you don't get that charisma out of him. You definitely get it out of Joe Girard. He's making it clear this is his team, and this is his city for the taking. He stayed home for a reason. Didn't go to a blue blood like Duke. He stayed home, and
No, sir.
I'm very excited for everything that Joe Girard has to offer. I think he had a great freshman season. Now moving on, the connection of the year. Kind of two guys we just talked about. Buddy Boeheim and Joe Girard was my connection of the year. As I said, Joe always hugging on Buddy, no matter who hit the shot. They always had that connection. They always passed to each other. They would find each other on the court. They just had this tandem energy. They just knew where each other were, and they always seemed to find each other through the slightest little holes, and they always made big plays together, and that's what this award should be. Who'd you have?
I had the same exact two, Buddy and Joe. It was just nice to watch them play together. They both are tremendous three-point shooters, and seeing them give it to each other back and forth, and one hits the big three, it's great to watch.
Good stuff. I remember when I'm going to save it. I can't say it right now. But moving on, the best game of the season. Gib, what was your best game of the year?
My best game, we were already talking about this a little bit, but it was the final game of the season, which we didn't know it was going to be the final game of the season until it was over, and then the tournament got canceled. But it was the game against UNC. Huge win, 81-53, after losing to them pretty badly at the Dome, which hurt. And then we came back and we're able to win this game, and again end the season. That wasn't a bad season, but also nothing fantastic. Ended on a high note. You see, as I was saying earlier, Sidibe had a really great game, and that was nice to see him go out strong. So hopefully he can have a really good season next year. So yeah, that game was my pick for the best game.
Absolutely. I had the same pick as well, the 81-53 domination over the North Carolina Tar Heels. Hughes led the way, 27 points. The Orange forced 18 turnovers with the 2-3 zone over the Tar Heels. 18 turnovers. And, I don't think North Carolina was as bad of a team as people anticipated, a 14 seed in the tournament.
No.
But Cole Anthony, one of the most dynamic freshmen in the country, was out nearly the entire year due to injury. He comes back. It's a whole different kind of Carolina team. And as I feared, we saw it at the Carrier Dome. Syracuse had lost to North Carolina 9 times in a row. We had only beat them one time since joining the Atlantic Coast Conference. It was due. It was more than overdue. We had Duke's number multiple times, a series that's nearly tied, but the one hump that we could never get over, it wasn't Virginia. We got over that hump a few times. It wasn't Duke. It was North Carolina. for whatever reason, and we played them in the Final Four one year and lost to them, in Houston, just a team that had our number. And it just felt so good to finally get that win over the Tar Heels, especially in the fashion that we did it. The entire game, all anybody's talking about, the sportscasters, the guys in the booth at halftime before the game, is this the best 14 seed we've ever seen? Can North Carolina make a magical run and win this thing because they're that talented? And, of course, everyone's going to talk about the blue blood North Carolina. Can they make this magic run and get to the ACC championship and get themselves into the NCAA tournament after only winning 11 games the entire season? I said, heck no. The Orange are standing in their way the first round, and everyone wrote it off like North Carolina was just going to beat Syracuse round one, and Syracuse heard that, didn't listen to the noise, and proved them wrong, as the Orange commonly do. We seem to like being the underdog, so I couldn't agree more, that being the game of the year. Now, the best moments, hit me with your three.
All right, this was one that I doubt you have, but I really just love to see it. It was Brendan Paul, one of the players who's not scholarshiped. He had a 3 versus Pitt. We were killing Pitt, and the clock was winding down, so we put the walk-ons and the bench players in, and Brendan Paul, out of nowhere, shot clock was off, didn't have to shoot it. He just confidently threw up a 3 and it swooshed, I'm pretty sure. And that just to me was awesome to see, because that even though they're not playing, they're sitting on the bench, they're working hard, they're coming to the practices and they're still part of the team. So it was just nice to me that he could come on, and even though he didn't have to, we were killing Pitt. He just drained that 3, and I loved seeing that.
Absolutely. That's an awesome one that you add there. One that didn't even really cross my mind, to be quite honest. Mine are going to sound pretty lame once I dish them out, but Gib, you got 2 more.
I got 2 more. My second was probably one that you did have, and it was Goodine's putback versus Wake. With 1.5 seconds left, gave us the 75-73 win.
I didn't have that one either.
No?
What's wrong with me? You got me beat big. This was the last one on the list. I was trying to get it done quick so we could get on the air, and you have me beat in this segment big time. But let's hear your last one. Man, I didn't even think of that.
That was it was crazy. Hughes brought the ball down. Yeah, Hughes brought the ball down, missed the 3. Goodine was in the right place, grabbed the board, confidently put it back up.
Man, we were literally watching that together. I don't know
if
I forgot about that. Crazy.
It's all right. I'm excited to hear your moments now, because they're totally different than mine, I guess.
You got one more.
I got one more. My third, this one I'd be very surprised if you didn't have, because we were just talking about this. It was Buddy's insane 3 to beat the shot clock that put us up 8 points within a minute left in overtime against Virginia on the road.
Yep, big time.
In this shot, I mean, if you were watching the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Even if you saw the highlights, he was a couple feet behind the arc. He was heavily guarded, shot clock dwindling down, and he just kind of heaved it up, and it went in to give us an 8-point lead and won us the game.
Yeah. Going down mine real quick, I said ending on a positive note, beating North Carolina and Greensboro, as I talked about a second ago, how great that felt. I had the buzzer beater by Buddy Boeheim, the shot clock buzzer beater, I should say, versus Virginia on the road. Just an absolute heave, as you said, sealed the deal, put us up by 8 with 1:17 left. And at that point, you knew we're winning this ball game. And we were watching it together, and we both looked at each other, and we were like,
that was crazy.
We're winning this ball game.
It was awesome.
We were in the
car streaming it on my phone. Yeah.
Good times. We got so many memories watching
They're great
together. We honestly spend the last 2 years just nonstop watching Cuse games every time they're on. So good stuff. I'm glad you came on today. But with my last
third moment.
Yes, my third moment.
I said
5 wins in a row, avenging losses to Notre Dame and Virginia Tech. You almost had 6 wins in a row with a 71-70 loss at Clemson. But just the fact that winning 5 in a row, it gave us that hope. We were pumped for basketball season again when all hope kind of seemed to be lost. And I really thought this was a team that was about to make a run, make the NCAA tournament. Clearly things didn't work out that way. But winning 5 games in a row meant something big, especially avenging 2 losses at the Dome, winning games on the road, beating Virginia on the road. We avenged 3 losses, really, because we had lost to Virginia early on in the season.
Yeah.
And you added on to that Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, and Virginia wins. You had Boston College and Pitt. And it was just an exciting time to live in Syracuse. The team was performing very well, and you could feel that energy every time they stepped onto the floor. Everyone was tuning in, ready for some Q's basketball. So that was my, it's not a specific moment, but it's a
Well,
glimpse
that's yeah.
throughout the
I
season.
didn't even think of that one, and that's huge. I mean, those 5 wins were great, especially 3 avenged our losses. I didn't even think of that one.
And the Boston College and Pitt games, we dominated, like straight up
Oh yeah,
dominated. So it really felt like the tides were turning. It was really something special. But that's all we got to wrap up our Orange Heat show right here. It's been a blast, Gib. I really appreciate you coming on.
that was a ton
You
of fun.
actually are the one that gave me the idea last night. I texted him. I was like, dude, I
It's
got
like
to
it was like 3 a.m. or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I was like, I got to do some Orange Heat, help me come up with some idea. And then you were like, dude, you should do a award show. And I was like, if I'm doing an award show, you have to come on and join me. So
Here we are.
thank you so much, buddy. I love your bedroom in the background.
The
2
walls.
shows we were in together, Tarzan and Chitty.
Yes, I got the shows up there.
Yeah, but then everything else all decked out in Syracuse
Cuse.
orange. So you love to see it. As you can see, the background.
The shirt.
Here, big Cuse fans. The shirt, of course, the hat. So,
Yep.
Again, Gib, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, I hope you enjoyed. Gib, why don't you tell us one more thing, what you're excited to see next season out of the Syracuse basketball team?
Ooh, there's a whole lot I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see the same connection between Joe Girard and Buddy Boeheim. Obviously they're both going to be back, and I mean Joe Girard was just a freshman, had an outstanding season. I'm excited to see his growth. I'm really excited to see the way Guerrier plays. He had a great season, great improved season, and I'm excited for Sidibe. He ended the season on a great note, averaging a double-double in those, last 5 or 6 games. So I'm excited to see if he can have a really awesome standout season as a senior. And I think there's a lot to look forward to next season.
Absolutely, buddy. Perfect way to end it off. Guys, if you made it this far, thank you so much for joining us on yet another edition of Orange Heat. For Tyler Gibbens, my name's Giovanni Heater. As always, we're out. Peace. Let's go Orange, baby. Woo!
Woo!